So welcome to Monza. We're here in the Motorsport Vision F3 car by Tatus, and this is in the Rfactor 2 competition system, which a lot of people are enjoying at the moment. This is Split 2, and it might actually be my last go in Split 2. I think I've been having quite a few runs in Split 2, and the system had pretty low expectations of my performance. I was getting some good driver rating bonuses. But in this event, on this particular day, there were just enough drivers to split it into two, and I was at the top of the rankings in Split 2, and the system had much higher expectations of me, expected me to come second and qualify. So as it happened, I managed to put the car on pole. I was 0.2 down until my final lap. I had to create some space, had to slow right down on my second lap. But in my third lap, I managed to find 0.3 of a second and grab pole. We've got a few solid drivers in this event, which is great, and it's an interesting one for me. I was really hoping to pull off finally a win. Now, I spent a lot of time working on getting the tyres very warm, and there was lots of interesting calculations about aero. I actually had 4 different setups ready of diminishing amounts of wing, and I went for the third one, so the second lowest amount of aero. Had I qualified worse, I was going to lower the wing a little bit more. Now here as we approach the start, I'm doing a lot of burnouts. Because I haven't gone for the lowest wing setting available, I really had to get a good start, and I had to get away, get into turn 1, get into the first variante in the lead, because if somebody with lower aero got in front of me, I really did need to rely on them making a mistake. So I'm doing burnouts, I'm getting the rear tyres as warm as possible, and also I slowed right down through the parabolica to try to close up the grid, not knowing how quickly the back markers were going to take their positions. So I got the rear tyres very, very hot prior to the start. Now the starts at Monza have been a bit hairy on occasion, and I was very relieved to see that not only myself but the guy in second, Antoine Briche, we were both in chat saying to the other drivers, just be sensible and keep some space into the first chicane. There is no point coming to a 14-lap race and breaking your car and someone else's car in the first chicane. I got to get a good start, get away well, and I'm really going to use the rubbered line here to have the last braking out of the lead runners. And very pleased to see that Anton drops in behind me there to show that he's not going to take any crazy moves on turn 1, lap 1. And we get away to a good start. But Antoine here is very clearly signalling that despite the fact that he was a gentleman at the first chicane does not in any way, shape or form mean that he's going to be a pushover for the rest of the race. And Antoine Briche is really setting to work trying to monster me in these opening laps and deliver quite a bit of pressure and give me something to think about. So the rear tyres might have been nice and hot for the start, but the front tyres and the brakes haven't really reached optimum operating temperatures yet, and you've just got to measure out how aggressive you want to be through the Ascari here for the first time. The car is really not gripping particularly well, and I'm probably erring on the side of caution, just not wanting to bin it while leading the race, and all the time looking behind me here at what Antoine is doing behind me, and he's doing a pretty good job of really getting on the gearbox of my car and showing me that I'm just going to have to be on it. The aero setting that I've chosen still is pretty reliable, pretty good through parabolica, and that's one of the things I discovered. This is my 8th race here in the F3 at Monza. Yeah, okay, I know I need to get a life, but it's been so much fun, and every time I've come I've learned something, and quite a few times I've been attacked or been attacking drivers who've got a little bit less wing than me, and they seem to be equally strong through the first variante, through the second variante. Where you have an edge, if you're carrying a tiny bit more wing, seems to be the first and the second Lesmo. Ascari, they're pretty good, but the big one for me is the parabolica. if I'm carrying a touch more wing than the attacking car, I seem to be able to get just a cleaner exit out of Parabolica, and we're all going to hit the limiter. The guy with the lower wing is going to hit the limiter a bit earlier, so he's going to have higher speed than you once he starts to build up his speed. Here we come into Parabolica now. But by the time you're both fully on the limiter, he's not going to gain anymore. But where his chance to gain is after the exit, once he's got full power down and full traction, he's going to inch forward up onto you and then eventually start to hit the limiter. And I might show the telemetry here in the bottom of the screen. You can see here, once that throttle trace, the green line starts to get smaller, that's the limiter kicking in. It's restricting the amount of throttle that the amount of fuel that the engine's getting. That's the limiter doing its job. So he's got a tiny bit lower wing than me, and that's allowing him to stay in touch by creeping up to me at the end of the straight and all the way up to the Lesmos, where I can usually just pull a little bit of a gap. Here we are through Ascari. Antoine is doing a good job through Ascari and just keeping the pressure on me. This is the rest of the grid now. This is lap 2 or 3. And this is us coming through Ascari. You can see the two of us have pulled a little bit of a gap now on the rest of the field as they file through. There were, I think, 24 cars on the grid, if my memory serves me correctly. So just at this point, it looks like a race between the two of us for the win, but that was not how it stayed. So here we are at the beginning of lap 5, and Antoine Briche has managed to put a huge amount of pressure on me. He's closed right up to me on the approach to the first corner, the first chicane, and as we run up now to the second Variante, this is a very fast section of track here, and with his slightly lower wing configuration and a bit of slipstream, he's managing to really put a lot of pressure on, and it's causing me to make defensive shapes. You can see there that I've gone to the middle of the track, which hasn't optimised my entry or exit to the second Variante, but it's meant it would take a huge amount of commitment from him to pull off a passing move with me dead centre on the track. So I'm getting a lot of heat now. Now we're end of lap 5, beginning of lap 6, and Antoine Briche in position 2. So he's sitting on the limiter here, but so am I. He's getting very close. I've pulled a defensive shape into the first chicane, and that's not going to help my exit. And Antoine is even closer than before, and he's going to pull up very close to me. I'm flat out, going as quick as I can in this car with this setup, but Antoine this time has really pulled it up close. He's right beside me. He's now got the right to racing room, and I had to weigh up the choice of going side by side with him through that second Variante or allowing him through and keeping both cars safe. I decide to let him through and continue to fight, because I think I can still attack with my setup, with my slightly higher wing setup, and keep putting the pressure back on him and hopefully force an error. I've not given up on trying to win this race, but I didn't try to win it in that chicane. Now the dynamic changes slightly, because now with the slightly lower wing car in front, you can see here I've definitely got a bit of an edge through Parabolica, but with the lower wing car in front, he's effectively giving me a lovely tow on the spots where previously he's had a big advantage. So I've now got some benefit from his low wing, but I've still got a car that's more effective through sector 2, particularly through the two Lesmos, and of course through the Parabolica leading onto this straight. So he's in no way out of trouble. And while we've been having our own little battle, the car in position 3 has started to make an appearance and making his presence felt as well. Now we're here in the second Lesmo, and I mentioned before the advantage that I think I had through the Lesmos. It's managing to put Antoine into a fair bit of pressured situation here. Through the Ascari, he's doing fine, but by virtue of the tow, I'm sticking nice and close. This is lap 7, and I'm fast through the Parabolica. I'm hitting the limiter even earlier than before by virtue of the tow, so I'm on the limiter well before the control tower here, and able to brake that little bit more aggressively. That was the third place car there, just looking back on him. Antoine gets his exit there from the first Variante. I'm following him now. Now I think this is either lap 8 or lap 9, and if Antoine wants to drop me and start to pull a bit of a gap, he's going to need to really push his car harder than he might want through the two Lesmos to break this toe that I've got, and it appears that he did just push it a tiny bit too hard, and he's off into the gravel on the outside of the second Lesmo. He recovers quite quickly though and manages to get back into third place. I take a deep breath and think, right, that's a lot of pressure gone off now. But in fact, Aitor Doyes, I hope that's the right way to say your name, Aitor, is travelling at a really good whack now. He's got his eye in and he's doing mid 47s, which is about what I'm doing. And I now have an attack from a second driver whose first name starts with an A, and he is managing to push quite hard and make his presence felt. And you know, after the stresses of the opening lap in this battle now, I just started to smile and think this is great racing. Now through these 8 races I've done in the F3 here at Monza, as I've dropped the aero and as I've worked a bit on the driving and understood the track a little bit better, someone's just disappeared on the left there. In fact, we're coming up to a lapped car now. We've only got 1 lap to go, and this gentleman, I think he got in someone's way in qualifying and somebody shouted at him, and so now he's become a bit conscious of it. But that's the final lap underway now. I'm going to hold off Aitor. Final entry into Parabolico, down into the mid 47s now on race pace. We were pretty evenly matched on pace, so he wasn't going to be able to do anything dramatic and catch me. And I'm going to cross the line with my first victory in the intermediate series. I've won a couple of the races in the beginner series, so I've really enjoyed the time here at Monza. I've had a ball. See you on track.